Hey, so this is going to be a part 1, part 2 type video. I'm going to give you some general background now, and then depending upon what happens Monday, I will be updating the video then. So, the title, Salisbury, Maryland, the town that chicken, and drugs built. So, this is going to come off as not a particularly complimentary video about the place that I live, and I love living by the ocean. So the question becomes, Dave, if you hate living there so much, why the hell are you living here? That's simple. This is where my kids live, with their mom. And putting up with the crap that you get by not being either white or Republican in this town is a price I'm willing to pay to be close to my kids. So that's basically that question asked, answered, dealt with. And yes, we do have a state university, Salisbury University, in town. And there is the assumption that leads to more liberal people coming and all of that crap. We don't want it's just not true. The student body it attracts tends to mirror the community in which the university tends to be. That's just a fact. As a former college professor who's taught in a lot of different places, yeah, that's how it works. So, that being said, why chicken and why drugs? Chicken, because we are the corporate headquarters of Purdue Chicken. You've probably seen the old commercials with Frank Purdue, whatever. He came up here in the early 1960s to start his chicken business. Came up here from Georgia. There are reasons why he came up here, a lot of different ones. But basically he came, he liked it, he helped build this town and put it on the map. Now, the rest of what I'm going to say, part of it is just public knowledge. People know it. The other part is supposition, so linking chicken with drugs. Salisbury is a drug town. What do I mean by a drug town? It is the place where drugs come up to Ocean City from South America. They're brought into town, they are repackaged, and they then go out on a major distribution route. We are close to Philadelphia. We are close to Washington, D.C. We are close to Baltimore. We are close. It's an amazing kind of focal point that allows one, if one had a mechanism through which one could create a drug distribution network. Salisbury's the hub where you would want that, the central processing of that stuff to be, the repackaging and then the distribution network out. Now, this is an open secret in town. Everybody knows it. The local businesses know it. The judges know it. The lawyers know it. And the judges and lawyers part, we're going to get into that on Monday, because that's the other part of this equation. I am going to say that there is not one successful person in Salisbury, successful business, successful judge, successful lawyer, that doesn't owe their financial livelihood to the drug trade here in town. That doesn't mean that they're doing drugs. It doesn't mean that they're involved in the drug trade. It just means a fair percentage of any successful lawyer's caseload in town going to be drug-related crimes. The courts, do they try to do anything about distribution? Did they try to interdict in terms of, the product, where it's coming from, how it gets into town? No, they don't. The judges are up there on the bench every day prosecuting or hearing cases prosecuted by the district attorney, who will also have something to say about on Monday. They're prosecuting the people who always get prosecuted in drug crimes. The people who are smoking marijuana, who are doing fentanyl and coke, who are the users. That tends to be working class people, and that tends to be people who are on the low end of the socioeconomic ladder, so to speak. So they're the ones who are in courts. So when I say the lawyers and the judges owe their livelihood, that's why. We're a drug distribution and processing place. And because of that, there are oodles of drugs around town. And you don't have to go pretty far to get them. So the question becomes, well, what's the link between chicken and drugs? Well, here's the link. And this is part supposition on my part, but it's also part direct, first-hand stories from former Teamster truck drivers that I used to know. People who used to drive the trucks that took Frank Perdue's chicken all over the place. And I'm not saying that Perdue knew this was going on. What I am saying is that allegedly, got to do some ass covering, allegedly there were, maybe not all, but some of the trucks, and again, this comes to me from a former family member who was a Teamster truck driver who did some work for Perdue over the years. Let's just say chicken wasn't the only thing that was going up and down the distribution network for Perdue Chicken. If you wanted to piggyback on an already established distribution network and you had a contraband product that you needed to distribute, the distribution network of Perdue Chicken's about as good as anything else. And yes, that is part of the plot line of Reacher Season 3, where a contraband arms dealer co-ops an already established distribution network for a legit product in order to piggyback on that product and get his contraband to the places he needs to within that distribution network. So I'm saying, allegedly, the drug trade here did the same thing. Are they still doing the same thing? Probably not. I don't know. All I know is from an old former family member who did work in the 60s and 70s for Perdue at the time when they were starting up. And he has tons of stories about what stuff, in addition to chicken, was in those trucks. Allegedly speaking. Again, one could say legally hearsay. So that's basically it. This is a drug town. This is not just a place where people take drugs, because that's everywhere. We're a hub for processing, repackaging, and distribution. And none of those things, processing, repackaging, and distribution, are being investigated, looked at, anything by our local district attorney or law enforcement local law enforcement. I don't know about the feds, but local law enforcement. Why? Because that's where their money comes from, man. You shut down drug distribution, half the lawyers have to leave town. So, what do they do to kind of save face and make it look like they're addressing the drug problem in town or drug crisis in America in general? They go after the little guy, the working class folks who are buying stuff. And they're not distributing it to other people. They're not, it's personal use. But for whatever reason, they get caught and they get dealt with harshly. One last thing, because I am going to talk about a person that I know quite well. He's not a choir boy by any stretch of the imagination. Yes, he has a rap sheet, but he was recently picked up for possession of marijuana. That was in October. He's been in jail since October 2024. And his is the case that is coming up on Monday. And the district attorney has been doing some pretty wacky, shall we say, stuff that, to my non-lawyery brain, doesn't pass the smell test. I will say that my friend's lawyer, who's a pretty high-priced lawyer out of a town close by, he's pissed at the crap that the district attorney has pulled. Absolutely pissed. Whether that works in my friend's favor or not, we'll see on Monday. But that being said, that's part one of the video. And hopefully, I'll have some positive, either way, I'll have some news to share on Monday. Whether it's positive or negative, I can't say right now. And anyway, I'll see you on the other side of the weekend. Hey, so I'm back. Part 2, back from court. Case involving my friend. It's a very close, personal friend. So, let me give you some background. Last October, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time and bought drugs from somebody who was under surveillance. So they were looking for somebody else. And he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yes, he did purchase narcotics, which the district attorney has known about since they got the lab results back on what they took off of him since last November. He was under misdemeanor drug possession charges with intent to distribute. It was a small amount. They always throw in the intent to distribute. So he had a plea deal on the misdemeanor charges that was set to be heard and resolved a week ago. At that hearing, without prior notification to his defense attorney, the district attorney decided to drop all of the misdemeanor charges and charge my friend with felony possession of narcotics. So it's no longer a misdemeanor case, it is a felony case. Keep in mind that on a misdemeanor drug possession charge, he has been in jail since October. In the same period of time, I've been going to all of the court appearances, show support for him, which is very important. Here's something that just comes up. He's got a gram or two of marijuana and another narcotic, which I'll get to in a minute. And he's held without bond, continues to be held without bond. He is now under felony charges. And in the same period of time, I've seen about 5 to 10 other individuals who are brought up on, in court on charges. One in particular comes to mind. This is a guy who had a parole violation, and his parole violation was driving around town with a loaded handgun in his car. And all he got was a slap on the wrist. He wasn't violated, and that was at the recommendation of the district attorney. Of course, the defense attorney is going to plead recognizance, he didn't mean it, blah, 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 which is what he did. But the defense attorney said, yeah, no problem. Yeah, this is a good guy. Let's let him go. Why? I don't know. This is a guy who obviously has a criminal background, otherwise he wouldn't be in court. He violated parole, so he was backing up 6.5 years in prison. Violated parole by driving around with a loaded handgun, and the district attorney says, let him off. He's allowed one strike. It's one hell of a fucking strike. He's allowed one strike, so yeah, let him go. Meanwhile, my friend, who's just on a misdemeanor drug charge, is in there since October, and he's still there. So now he's facing felony drug possession with intent to distribute charges. Why? Because, and they've known this since last November, when the results of all the tests of the substances they confiscated from him and his car, and by the way, he was living out of his car at the time. There is an issue that can be made as to whether what stuff in that car is actually his, and what is the possession, whether they are his or other people who happen to be in the car at the same, in and about the same point in time. That's an open question. But he had a vial, literally this big, less than a teaspoon worth of liquid. That liquid was a mixture of NyQuil, fentanyl, and cocaine, which, for those of you who are up on the drug thing, is a very common mixture that people have. So he had basically a teaspoon, let's just round up, a teaspoon of NyQuil mixed with fentanyl and cocaine. So what is the felony charge? He is being charged with possession of half a brick of fentanyl with intention to distribute. So he's now facing way more serious time than he would under the misdemeanor charges, which he had already agreed to a plea before it was withdrawn. Now, how you get, because I'm not a lawyer, but how you get from a teaspoon of NyQuil, even if it is mixed with fentanyl and cocaine, which again, they knew 6 months ago, didn't bother to charge him with that. But now they did. So the question becomes, why? And after talking to my friend and talking to his attorney, this is my supposition as to why. For whatever reason, they have decided to take the screws to the thumbs of my friend. And they keep saying, you know what, we'll go easy on you if you do X, Y, and Z. And my friend is saying, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to rat on people. I don't want to become an informant. I don't want to do any of that. So basically, they're doing what you see in all of these cop shows. They're throwing the book at him in an attempt to get him to flip. And he's not flipping. And as I said, part one of the video, his attorney is pissed off because they had a plea. And it was not a pretty plea. It was not a get out of jail scot-free plea. My friend would have done some time. But for whatever reason, and I can't think of a particularly good one, the district attorney broke their promise. They had agreed to it. It was in writing. The deal was signed. And yes, I know they have the legal right to take it away if they want to. But to do it literally minutes before going into court and agreeing to it and having the judge give sentence, and then this would have been done 2 weeks ago, they pulled this crap. And I have no idea why they pulled this crap on my friend while letting other people drive around town with loaded handguns. So, that's where we are right now. He is still in jail. He is now facing some serious time. And we'll see what happens. I'm in touch with his attorney, and my hope is that something breaks here, because this isn't right. This doesn't pass the smell test. So we'll see. And anyway, that's it. That's my little diatribe on Salisbury, Maryland, the town that chicken and drugs built, and how drugs continue to wreck people's lives. And instead of going after the people who are actually making the money off of destroying people's lives, what does our fair county choose to do? Punish the people whose lives are being destroyed. We're talking about a man who was living out of his car. And yes, he's not a choir boy, as I said. Yes, he bought drugs, including a teaspoon full of NyQuil with fentanyl and cocaine. But why they're treating him this way, that doesn't make sense to me. Other than they want to lean real hard to turn him to become some sort of witness against the guy they were actually going after, or informant, whatever. And he, up until today, is still saying, no, I'm not going to do that. So they're turning up the heat on him. He's got a good attorney behind him. He's got me and other people behind him. We'll see what happens. Ciao.